And so with that being said, tonight is a very, very special night. I believe all of the shows that we've done thus far have been definitely impactful, but tonight's show is particularly very close and near and dear to me because it deals with the topic of trauma, surviving trauma. There has been so many situations that women face in life that has impacted them, and some not even as women. Some of us have experienced trauma as young children, and to have to carry that and have to navigate through life through those experiences can be somewhat set us back, somewhat causing us to deal with our emotions, having some negative impact and influences with dealing with relationships. All sorts of things can also relate to experiencing any level of trauma. Basically, at the very simplistic explanation of what trauma is, it's an emotional or psychological. It's emotional or psychological. It occurs when a person is exposed to an intensely stressful experience, which destroys, listen to this, which destroys their basic sense of security. The basic sense of security. You think about children who have been abused by a parent. Their basic sense of security, a person that they're supposed to love, respect, honor, and being traumatized by that individual in authority, losing your basic sense of security. It also threatens their safety, being physical, emotional, or psychological. The person will have felt completely overwhelmed, helpless, and alone. These are just some of definitions at the simplest form, because I am definitely not Dr. Tony, but at the simplest form, what trauma does. But this show tonight is not just dealing with the fact of people who have experienced a level of trauma in their life, but it is one of victory, from being a victim to being a victor, victorious, walking through it. And I am not so familiar with the intimacies and the intricacies of these women, our guests on tonight, their stories. But even if they are walking through to the other side, there is still victory. There is still things to be celebrated on that respect. And so without further ado, I want to introduce our guest, our special guest on tonight. We have two wonderful, dynamic women that I have the pleasure to know personally. And I want to share a little bit about both of them. So if you would just indulge me, I want to be able to read their bios to you. Michelle Gary is our first guest. Gary was born in Stamford, Connecticut, but moved to Baltimore, Maryland at a young age with her parental unit, Michael and Roberta Gary. Michelle has two siblings and an adorable cat by the name of Cassius. She received her formal education through Baltimore City Public Schools. Michelle is a graduate of the Baltimore School of the Arts and received her musical training there. Michelle is using her gifts and knowledge as an independent artist while also contributing to her music therapy ventures. She looks to further her education in psychology, music therapy, and massage therapy. Michelle is a resilient example for anyone dealing with mental illness and trauma. While she is actively in therapy and establishing a journey to healing, she is focusing on her own mission to help others who may have endured or are enduring the same hardships in life. She understands the needs of the people in her community, and she wants her support to reach many. There's someone who is not on mute. If you could please take a moment and mute your lines. Thank you so much. Michelle is curating her own holistic brand and wellness organization set to focus on mental health and spiritual wellness. In closing, there's a quote Michelle gave, and that is, of course, every day is a test, but with God, all things are possible. We must remember to stay motivated and focused on our end goal while not losing sight of the people who have our backs through the process. So this is Michelle, and I want to turn right now quickly and introduce Miss Pamela Williams as well, because once I introduce them, I'm going to turn over the floor to these capable women. Born to survive, Pamela Williams has proven she is a survivor. Pregnant at 17 years old in her last year of high school, Pamela had some serious battles to fight. Through God's help, she survived a moment in time that was created to kill her. Her determination to survive gave her the push to graduate with her bachelor's degree in English communications from Coppin State University. She also graduated from the University of Baltimore with a master's degree in health systems management. In 2015, Pamela was named the 2015 Miss Corporate America of Baltimore, Maryland. Pamela competed.
I got it.
Pamela competed and won the prestigious Best Interview Award. Her life experiences led her to become an author of the book entitled Saved Single Sister, Real Talk. She is currently the author of 4 books. Adding to her list of credits, she was a talk show host, a radio talk show host, the show was entitled A Different Identity Radio Talk. The show was created to give the male and female point of view on relationships, dating for those over 35. Tenacious, blessed, and even funny, but especially resilient, are just some of the words used to describe Pamela. Some of the highlights of her life is being the mother of 3 amazing children, Tiara, Brandon, and Joshua, the proud grandmother of a beautiful granddaughter named London and a grandson, Brandon Jr. She is married to the man of her dreams since 2019. So with that being said, we want you to open up your hearts, open up your ears, open up your minds as we welcome our guests to the platform for the very first time at the Well Women's Chronicles. We're going to begin tonight with Michelle. Thank you, Michelle, and welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Would you like me to start or you want me to? So it's always really uncomfortable still for me to talk about some parts of the journey. However, I feel that I'm able to talk a lot more about how I recognized my life changing after these situations. And I'll probably call them situations a lot, but that's just a way that I can get myself to get going on the topic. So let's start from the beginning. I went to school at, as it was mentioned, Baltimore School for the Arts. This is actually where I experienced this the first time with sexual assault. To describe that time for me, I felt it was the end of my sophomore year. I was feeling good. I'm like, oh yes, I'm about to be a junior in high school. It's almost time for me to get out of this place. Um, and at the time, I was dealing with a lot of symptoms of depression. And that's when I really recognized anxiety starting to be a problem with my everyday life. Um, so at that time, just going through it with what you would call growing pains, where it's like, I'm not going to listen to my parents. I'm going to do what I want to do, but, just trying to make sure that I wasn't losing sight of who I was. And I feel that I was a really confident person at that time. The way everything was going at school was just, my music was flourishing. I was watching my voice develop. Um, my best friend was still my best friend. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm making friendships, stuff like that. Um, so around the time of the situation, um, I was aware of what like sexual assault was. I was aware of the many ways that people have described their journey with it. And before then, I feel like a lot of the things I was hearing from outside sources or from just hearing other people describe their experiences, it just always seemed like there was no way to get anyone to believe you, or there was no way to, I guess, in a way, forgive yourself for allowing something so drastic to happen. Um, so, like I said, with school going well and just being able to see myself develop into this lovely young lady, I'm just like, why would something like this happen to me? And a lot of times you hear people like, oh, well, what was she wearing? Or what was she doing? Where were they? And it's like, I was at school. I was in like after school program and just doing what I was doing at school. And that was the last thing I expected to have happened that day. Um, so just more on how that day unfolded for me. I wasn't really sure if I was recognizing the situation. Um, I'd been well aware of, what rape was, sexual assault. I was pretty educated on that topic as a whole. But I feel like no one ever can really express getting over that and just really sitting down with yourself and saying, okay, I made it through the situation, but is that okay with me? Like, is that something that I feel that I can forgive myself for? Like I said, letting something like that happen, and I wasn't even bringing it upon myself, as people like to say a lot of times. Um, and so, with that being said, um, hopefully it's okay with my mom. I know she's on here, but she shared with me about some sexual assault that happened in her growing up. So with knowing that that's something that happened in my own family and something as close to me as my mom, it's like, man, what am I to do here? Like, is hearing about generational curses and hearing about how when growing up as a girl and your dad's like, there's crazy people out here, and you're like, but it was a person that I went to school with, and unfortunately, to just kind of put icing on the cake, I really liked this person. And later on, I did learn the actual definition personally, of what would be considered like date rape or like sexual assault in a relationship, sexual abuse in a relationship. Um, and that was definitely a large part of me feeling like I couldn't open up about it. Um, Sorry, give me 1 second. Um, a hard time opening up about it because I feel like people are going to be like, well, weren't you like dating him, weren't you guys together? And that's kind of hard to be like, but either way, it was not something that was acceptable, based on what I voiced as my opinion. And I recall it was really like earlier that week, um we had a conversation about it. And at the time, I was just like, I believe in saving myself for marriage. I don't think this is something I want to do right now. And I felt very confident in the way I expressed this to this person. And it was probably like 2 days later when this happened. So for me emotionally, it was like, all right, I guess this is how people are. Even though you tell them something, it doesn't mean they're going to listen. And I feel like bringing that into my adulthood and really the path I found myself on, just with how I communicate with people, how family life went, where it was just, I was really abrasive all the time and not recognizing that I was being that way. And I'm just like, I don't want anyone near me, and just learning about how you can physically change and not realize that it's happening, before your very eyes. So coming up in my like teenage years, that was really difficult for me with understanding who I was as a person and being comfortable in my body. Because again, if I'm cute, I shouldn't have to be worried about going outside because I think someone else is going to do something like that. Um, so having that happen in high school, that's a really pivotal point in your development, I feel, because you're learning how to actually have a human connection with people. And I can say at the school I went to, we were all relatively close, but it was a different environment because, we all see each other as professionals. And it's like, all right, we come to this school every day to get better at a craft, and I should be able to respect you as a human being. And I say that to say, right now, unfortunately, in the community of people I know as artists, there's been a lot of sexual harassment among the people that are putting on shows, people that are doing photo shoots. And it's really unfortunate because as a singer, I want to be able to do shows, and I don't want to be worried about, okay, I might be backstage one of these times and something crazy happens. So bringing that up to present times, it's definitely really hard figuring out where I see myself at times, because I do find that I go back in my thought process to when I was home, and when that happened, and it's like I'm a kid having to figure out, am I going to tell my parents the truth, or am I going to just take this for what it was, and like how, well, not for what it was, but take it and just, I'm going to have to get better after this, the emotional pain I was feeling, the way my mind went. So now, like I said, it's just tough figuring out how to move forward from those things. You hear a lot of times, oh, just heal from it, move past it, life goes on, keep trucking. It's like, yes, for sure. I completely understand that. And just moving through these things, you don't realize that it's going to be so much to have to forgive yourself for being so mean to yourself, for not knowing how to handle that situation when it was going. And so I don't know. I feel like that's kind of all I can say for how I developed. And like for now, just trying to get back into a solid belief system and just keeping a strong mind as best I can. Um, I will say every day is not the easiest. But if you're sticking to it and you're believing that you can get through whatever, even if you're not a victim of sexual assault, this I feel can be for anything, in any type of way you have been wounded, because there's plenty of ways to feel abused. There's plenty of ways for someone to take advantage of you. But in this aspect, it's just a matter of keeping your faith and remembering that you're still a human being. You can definitely move on. Being educated, I think, helps. Right now, I'm in therapy, and it's not necessarily for this specific event, but understanding that PTSD and all the lovely things that come with that. You want to take care of that. And it took me a while to really be comfortable with wanting to talk to someone personally about it and being okay with slowly uncovering those things. Because I'm a person, I don't really like to talk about the things that go on with myself. Um, but when the opportunity's there, I'd rather, talk to you about it, and it might help, because at that point might be an eye opener for you, and there may be an opportunity for me to kind of get another light bulb where I'm just like, all right, yes, this is helping me. So as far as therapy goes, um, it's really helpful with managing how I process anxiety. Um, Depression, I won't say I'm completely depressed anymore. That can just be kind of testimonial. I do have my days, of course. Um, and I was gonna say something else, but I forgot what I was gonna say. But essentially, that's been my story. What I've been dealing with as far as getting stronger, and not being fearful of relationships with people, not being fearful just in general, thinking that something unfortunate's going to happen all the time just because I might be there. Um, and just being a part of things like this, where it's like, I can talk about this. People do hear me, people do support me, and there's other people out here to reach. Like I said, you can go through all sorts of things. Um, Being in groups. I do have a group chat that I've kind of curated. It's called the Girl Journal. It's not completely public yet, but I can say that even being the person who kind of put this group together, um, people are there for you. I do suggest, even if it's not a daily thing, if you have a email list with people that you're connected to that, are encouraging to you, and that you also feel comfortable in their space to encourage them, just kind of get a group together and just talk. We bring all kind of subjects to the table. It could literally be one of us at 5 a.m. is like, y'all, I just woke up. I had this crazy dream. It had me shaken up, but I'm doing okay. This is how I handled it, and we discuss it. So, how did you feel when you woke up? What did you do to calm yourself down? And just kind of treating each other as a basis of comfort. As I said, just people who make you feel like you can be encouraged, I think is really important. And being a person with anxiety around new people, I feel like that helps, because we add people to the group all the time. It's, if I have someone that I'm like, I think you should be in this group, you're somebody that I think would enjoy this. Just adding on to a sisterhood is really important to me. And really connecting with that through all of the different things, that I've gone through since high school. And just bringing that into being a woman. It's like, you gotta really embrace the times that you're not focusing on what has happened to you. And I find it really difficult to kind of switch back at times, because it's really easy to slip into a state of being down about thinking about it, and just thinking about all the things that have kind of snowballed inside of you since then. But again, just kind of getting a spiritual tone set, and just being in reality and recognizing that people are around you to help. So hopefully that was okay.
That was perfect. Just a couple of questions. So let's talk about, you said that this happened to you when you were a sophomore. So you're around about 15, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
15 years old. Do you find there are still triggers that will take you back to that place? And how do you deal with the triggers? Can you offer up some suggestions, even through, if you don't want to talk about type of things that you discussed or methods within therapy, but if you can share some, some wisdom with us, like when those triggers, things that can trigger you, how do you handle those?
I will say, for starters, having to learn your own triggers is a tough process, because when things happen, we can't always control how a situation unfolds, the way a door closed. We can't control the wind behind that. We can't control, just you woke up and one side of your face was funny and now you're irritated. It's things like that. You can't always control. So when people have a certain tone, or when you hear certain words, you might not even recognize it at the time it's happening. Mm-hmm. So you'll just be like, man, I just kind of had a panic attack and I'm not sure why. I will say the things that kind of trigger me, I notice that some certain smells, sometimes it'll just put me in this mood and I'm like, all right, this smells like something from this time. And I do have some fragrances where I'm just like, I cannot smell that. I don't want to be near it. It reminds me too much of this particular era. Like, I don't want any parts of it. Hearing certain, it's going to be weird to say, but certain types of voices, like people's tones can sometimes be a little triggering to me. And I don't know if it's just, like, again, there were other things going on, so it just kind of compiled. But yeah, like hearing certain inflections or certain frequencies will really bother me. And it just kind of, it'll either put me into a state of thinking about all those kinds of things, or it'll just make me feel weird. I can say some with like physical touch at times, if it's too quick, like if someone's coming to give me a hug, if, sometimes people will grab you and then pull you in, that'll make me be like, oh, okay, I don't like that.
You find yourself verbalizing now? Are you more verbal about things that you don't like, or, do you give people direction and how to treat you now that you are navigating through this situation or managing?
I think it depends on how bad it gets me.
Mm-hmm.
But I also try to be mindful of the level of shaken up I am, because I know I won't be able to communicate it properly. It'll kind of come off more in a pointy way than being like, hey, that kind of did something to me there, and I just want to let you know in case I am in a funk, or in case, that makes me be in a funk. I don't know what's going to make my mood like, but it affected me. I do find myself being able to remove myself from certain situations, or just kind of trying to avoid getting there. Even with like talking to people, especially with not being able to see everyone's faces now. And it's like, I feel that at times people kind of are still standoffish, but then you're just like, I'm really trying to communicate with you that, like, it's okay. I'm nervous now, or I'm a little on edge now, but you're fine. It's okay. I promise. Just kind of trying to reassure people. I find myself doing a lot, instead of allowing myself to express what was wrong. But like I said, being able to just kind of avoid it, I think, is part of how I deal with it, rather than actually removing myself from a lot of situations.
Wow. Well, that was certainly eye-opening, inspiring to because I personally know you, and part of your journey. You know, I was there and present for some of the things that you experienced, and to see you evolve into this, you know, light of a young woman, level of confidence, and how you're able to express yourself, you know, with great emotion and confidence. It's a joy to see. I remember little Michelle, and now I see the young woman Michelle handling life and handling her business, and my favorite word, navigating through.
Yes.
Navigating through life. Not that it's flawless, but you are handling it head on and taking on the challenge of becoming
Yes.
all that God has created you to be. So with that being said, I want to thank you for being authentic. I thank you for being transparent with us. I know this, even discussing this type of situation cannot always be easy, but I do believe that there are people who may not be on this particular Zoom call now, but who will listen to this later on, or perhaps things they can glean from what you shared with us on tonight. So thank you very, very much. I appreciate
you.
Appreciate you. And now we're going to have Miss Pamela come on, and she's going to share a portion of her story, her testimony, as well of surviving trauma. And I release the floor to you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Pastor Faith, for having me tonight. You know, I thought a lot about what I could say or what I would say, because, you know, when you think of trauma to triumph, you think of a really sad story. So I'm going to start forward and go backwards. So first, to meet me, you would see like this typical type A personality. You know, I multitask like crazy. That's why I came from one Zoom call to this Zoom call. You know, I am that one that is organized, I'm focused, but yet I ended up in an abusive marriage. This has been my personality for my entire life. Like I said, even though I was pregnant when I graduated from high school, I graduated from Baltimore City College, City Forever. And I was the one who was still very competitive. And I graduated with both my A and B class diplomas, and I've always been this person. But yet when I decided I wanted to be rebellious against my father, I married an abusive man. And I'm not going to talk a whole lot about him because it's not his story. It's my story and how I got through it. I mean, this man fought me. He pulled the gun on me when I finally left. He would fondle me with that 9mm Glock. We would be the one at the club that was fighting. I mean, it was terribly abusive, to the point that when my mom found me at one point, I was about to have a nervous breakdown. That's when everybody believed that I was actually being abused. Before then, it wasn't. But anyway, so back in 2016, I was invited to speak for the Masons Tri-State Area Conference. And at that conference, I had just written and released my first book, Save Single Sister Real Talk. And again, I said that year was 2016. And I remember specifically, I spoke about, what is your theme song? If you were to walk into a room and to introduce you, there was a song that was playing, what would that song be? And for me, Miss Confident, Miss Type A personality, it was Brick House. I turned on Brick House. I said, oh yes, I'm all this and everything. And I showed how I primp in the mirror and I get ready to go out or get my day started. And it was Brick House because I felt like I was everything. but inside I was tore up. But yet I said Brick House was my song. The most incredible thing about it was at that point, I had been through a cycle of bad relationships. So when I married my ex-husband and we got separated, it was in 1993. So from 1993 to 2002, I'll never forget that as well, because that was the year I went to Woman Thou Art Loose in New Orleans with Bishop Jakes. And 2002 down in New Orleans, it was interesting. But the most interesting and memorable part about that trip for me was the fact that that was during those 3 days we were there was the day that I actually felt I was starting to heal from my abusive marriage. So I remember I let out this scream that I will never forget. So from 1993 to 2002, 9 years, over 10, almost 10 years later was when my healing started. I was so traumatized from the fact that this man had literally almost took my life. The day that I left him, we had gone to church and he came home and he was so angry. He was just angry. He was just full of demons. I always said he was full of demons. He was angry. And he got so angry, and I was a good wife. I always cooked, had my dinner ready when my husband came home because I knew he had to go to work. And when he saw what I cooked, he said, I don't want that. I want my hamburgers. So he wanted to fix Mary's hamburgers after I had fixed. I never get the meal. It was short ribs in the oven with some baked macaroni and cheese and some greens. I cooked him a good meal that day. And no, he didn't want that. But that was those demons acting out. And so he came in and he decided he wanted to fix his Mary's hamburgers. When he fixed it and he finished eating, he came back, he threw the plate at me and said, wash this, like I was his slave. I got angry and I threw the plate back at him. He, in turn, decided he wanted to come back and fight me. But at that time, one of my girlfriends was at the house. And she pushed him off of me and said, you're not going to fight her while I'm here. Well, that made him angry. I will never forget. He went back to the bedroom. He went up in the closet. He got his 9mm Glock. I heard him load it. And he told me, B, you're going to die today. And he cocked that gun back. And it was only the grace of God. I know it was. It was only the grace of God that he didn't shoot me. She was talking fast. My girlfriend was talking fast. Put that gun down. Don't you do that. Don't you shoot her. You can't. I'm calling 911. That wasn't phasing him. But she was talking and she was talking. All I could do was say Jesus, because if he would have shot and killed me. But God intervened. And when God intervened, he left. And when he left, I left. After all the abuse I had gone through for years, that was the trigger to make me leave. And once I left, he was the typical abuser. I left and went to my mom's house. Roses, stuffed animals, candy, all types of stuff was delivered to the house because he was trying to coerce me to come back. And I wouldn't. And so that was the day that I left, and we got divorced shortly thereafter. The biggest thing for me when it was about trauma that people don't realize is trauma is not an overnight remedy. There is no overnight remedy. So for years, even though I thought I was fine and I was okay, I was carrying that abuse from relationship to relationship to relationship. So that every man that I went or dated, they were all abusing me in some form or fashion. And I was allowing it because I just didn't know any better. I had not healed yet. And what happened was, for me, it added to, and so at one point, not only was I was emotionally tore up, my heart was tore up, and it was not healing at all. And finally, what ended up happening to me was people think that when you hear of a person being sick or dying from a broken heart, that's not real. Oh, yeah, it's real. It's really real. It's not only do they die, but you can make yourself physically sick. And for me, after that time of abuse, then with all these relationships that were broken, that I was hurting from, not finding love, looking for love in all the wrong places, I got sick. And I was at work. I was a teacher. And I remember walking up the steps of the school one day. And when I got to the top, I was breathing really heavy. And they had said I had asthma. So when people saying, well, Miss, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? And I said, oh, it's just asthma. I'll go see the doctor in a couple days. I'm dedicated. I'm dedicated to the children in the school. So I wouldn't leave. No, I'll go into urgent care on my professional development break. It's this all right. So they was like, no, Miss, you don't sound good. And I was like, oh, I'm all right. I get to my classroom. I had a student teacher. She had to teach because I literally could not talk. Every breath was a problem. So I said, well, okay, I'll go to the doctor tomorrow. Still putting it off. The next day I go to the doctor at the urgent care. And I said, oh, I think it's just my asthma. I think if you give me an inhaler, some steroids, I'll be good. So she said, okay, well, let me take a listen. She took a listen. She said, you mind if I do an EKG? And I said, sure, why not? I'm thinking she's just doing her routine care. Well, she came back and she said, I'm going to give you this. I need you to go see a cardiologist yesterday. I said, what? Miss, what you talking about? I said, all right, I'll make an appointment with my primary care. I made an appointment with my primary care physician, and I went to see her still 3 days later. This is how much I'm just not caring or paying attention. And I get to my primary care, I show her the strip, and she says, I want to send you to cardiology right now. I said, okay. This was a Friday. I said, okay, fine. I go down to cardiology. She said, Pam, this is not good. And I said, what do you mean? I don't have any heart problems. I just got asthma. What do you mean? And she said, this strip looks bad. I need you to, when I got to cardiology, I need you to come in for some tests on Monday, but I need you to do nothing this weekend. You can't do anything. I need you to be still. I was like, what? I'm, again, type A personality, multitasking all the time. I got lots of events to attend. I got a book to promote. Life is happening. What do you mean I can't do anything? She said, nothing. I said, okay. By Sunday, my mom literally lives across the street. I can see her house from my house. I could not walk from my house to her house. And they were like, well, what's wrong with you? I said, nothing. I'm just a little tired. Maybe I'm just tired. By that Sunday evening, they were rushing me to Union Memorial Hospital. When I got to the counter, I literally collapsed. And after they checked me out, they learned that one, I had a blood clot in the left ventricle of my heart, in the widowmaker, as they call it. And my heart was literally pumping at only 24%. The doctor said, you made it just in time because you should have died overnight. You should have died. I don't even know how you walked in here. I spent 8 days in the hospital with them running all types of tests on me, trying to figure out what was going on and what had happened. By the third day, they had diagnosed and said, oh, you need a heart transplant. I cried. I cried and I cried. And at that point, I was starting to realize my heart, not only had I been hurt with all the emotionally, now physically, it was manifesting in my body because they had no real reason of why I was sick at all. Nothing they could tell me. They kept on saying, we have no reason. We don't even know why you're sick. That was the concerning thing. So I ended up home on bed rest. They told me no movement for you. I was now on blood thinners, had to go to the clinic every day because I was taking warfarin, had to get blood drawn every day to make sure my numbers were correct. I was walking around with what they said was a life vest, so that if my heart stopped, it would defibrillate me back I had a wheelchair at home because if I left the house, I needed to be wheeled. Now, mind you, I was only 45 years old. I was not older. Nothing had happened to make me get this way. And as time went on, strangely enough, I was still trusting God. I said, God, you will heal me of this because there's no way this is going to go like this. But I could hear God say, you were built for this. What? God, you must be really playing games. So again, this is how me and God talk. So we can talk like this. Everybody might not pay to get away with talking to God. You know, we all have our language of how we talk to him. But for me, it's real transparent. Like, Lord, you playing, you are really joking. It is no way that you're telling me I'm built for this. He like, you're built for this. That's all I can hear all the time. You're built for this. I'm trying to struggle, walk up and down the steps. Oh, you're built for this. Can't walk to the car. Oh, you're built for this. Then it was time for me to go back to work. And if anybody knew me when I was teaching, I loved the children. And I taught high school in Baltimore City. I loved the children and they loved me. A matter of fact, when I left sick, they all made cards and sent them to me at the hospital. I loved the children. So I was determined to go back to work. So by this time, I had gone and got a second opinion at another hospital because I was determined I wanted to go back to work and I was going to live. Because the other thing, God kept telling me, this is not unto death. And I kept on saying, I can't tell because I got a 24% beating heart. I got a blood clot. You telling me I need to be in a wheelchair? What the devil? This is not unto death? Okay, maybe this is just a timing thing. So I go back to work. When I go back to work, one day I'm at work and I start having chest pains again. And I'm like, what's going on? And I call my doctor because now I'm on like 20 some pills a day to keep me alive. 20 some maintenance meds. Crazy. And during this time, the other crazy part, which was absolutely ridiculous. Now I have a heart that's acting crazy. And Lord knows I don't want to deal with no man. What man want to deal with a woman that's sick? I meet a man. What, Jesus? You're really playing. You got all types of jokes at this point. And the man I met, he said to me, I just want to help you get well. What? Who does that? I mean, it's plenty of able-bodied women walking around and you want to deal with one that's sick? Lord, Lord, come on now. And I talked to him by the way of messenger for 4 hours before we actually met in person. And I knew him because we are alumni of the same high school, but we just had never sat down and had a conversation. We just were acquaintances. And he said, you know what? I want to take you on a date. What? Lord, I got a heart beating at 24%. What kind of games you playing, Jesus? And this man took me on a date, on a picnic. And we had the best time ever. And from that day forward, we were dating. And 3 months in, he presented me with a ring and said, will you be my girlfriend? What? Oh, Jesus, you really playing. You mean on top of this, you sending me a gentleman after all this stuff I'd have been through? Okay. All right, Lord, this is jokes. So again, I'm back to having chest pains. And I reached out to my doctor and I said, well, you know what? I am having chest pain and I don't know why. And she said, well, you know what, Pam, I really think that you're going to be one of our patients that has chest pain for the rest of your life. There's no etiology to it. It's just that you will have pain. She said, but to be safe, I'm going to send you in to get a cardiac catheterization. I said, okay. The day that she sent me in, I was very nervous, which was unusual for me because for one, I'd had it done before twice. And so I knew what the procedure looked like and how it felt. But this particular time I was very antsy. And when I got there and they would get ready to do the test, I started crying. I said, I'm scared. And she said, why are you scared? And I said, I don't know. I'm very, very afraid. And she said, well, okay, I'll let them know that to give you a little extra sedative since you're so upset. Well, lo and behold, to make that part shorter, when they went in to do the cardiac catheterization, they could not. They found 390+% blockages. And they said, we're going to call your doctor right now, because really, you should not be walking around, because you should have died. You have 3+ blockages in your heart. And we really need to go in and do some type of surgery. Again, I'm just beside myself. Again, I'm worked up. And the doctor scheduled me for a triple heart bypass. And on September 5th, 2018, I ended up having a triple heart bypass with a surgery that ended up being 9 hours long. That was supposed to be 5 hours long. And he said when he went in, he saw a lot more that he had to do than he thought. And he cleaned it all up. And I said, well, glory be to God. Thank God for guiding the surgeons, because I was really nervous. And lo and behold, all of this, the man God sent me was still there. Can you believe it? He was still there through all of that. And the funny thing was, when we went to the hospital for my surgery, he said, I'm not leaving this ICU until you come out. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, when I woke up, he was one of the first people I saw. And as long as I stayed in ICU, he stayed there at that hospital. He did not leave until I went to the step-down unit. And then 4 months later, he proposed, and we got married on August 2nd, 2019. So God can do anything. So in all that time that I was being abused, with all those terrible relationships, with all that sadness, in the end, and I still don't think this is the end, during my story, because I'm still processing, because God is still doing new things every day. Because even in November of last year, I became Minister Pam. I was like, huh, Jesus? Me? Really? Minister Pam? Okay, I must have something to say. But all of this to say, regardless of the trauma, it took from 1993 to 2000. And let's see, I started dating my husband in 2017 for me to start to heal. It took that long. Trauma is something you can't diagnose. You can't figure out when the end is going to come. You just know it happens, and you just start feeling better all of a sudden. And so even though I was in another situation with my heart, with it starting to hit, with my heart acting up, in the end, I'm starting to feel better every day, because emotionally I'm feeling better, physically I'm feeling better, and it's all from trauma to triumph. That is absolute truth. And that's my story.
Wow, what an incredible, incredible testimony of, oh my goodness, victory, from victim to victory. Michelle, if you're still on the line, I want you to pop back on visually for me if you can. But I wanted to ask you a question about the forgiveness. Do you currently have any type of relationship with the person that victimized you? Either one of you ladies, do you have any type of relation where you, or if not, were you yet able to forgive them? And do you think that is an important part of the process of your healing, your deliverance, walking in wholeness and victory?
Well, I'll answer first, since Michelle spoke so eloquently of her story. For me, I do not have a relationship with him at all. No contact. I felt like I needed to forgive only because, and I'll be honest and straight with you, because I'm not going to hell for hating nobody. I'm just not. And for me, I hated him for years. And I started to realize, in order for me to heal And it took me a long time. Again, it might not have been till about 2016 that I said, I got to forgive this man, because if not, I'm going to die in this hatred. And I didn't want to do that. That's how probably was this catalyst to me starting to heal. I mean, I don't desire, from my understanding, he's still an abuser. He's been married other times and he's still an abuser, but I don't want any parts of a relationship with him at all.
Okay. But you were yet able to forgive him in order
Yes.
for you to walk in that wholeness and that victory and that you're trying to get for yourself. So that
Exactly.
They always say the forgiveness is not for the other person, it's always for us. So
Sure.
How about you, Michelle? Were you able to forgive, or are you still in that process for what that happened to you?
I would say I've forgiven, because the way I viewed it at the time, like I said, this happened while I was in school and like physically in the building of my learning establishment. So I was thinking more like, I can't ruin this boy's life, So I feel like I said before, I feel like I took a lot of that blame for not stopping the ruin of both of us in a way, I guess. I was more concerned about the fact that I knew what happened and wasn't able to stop it, and kind of saw it more as my own fault. So as far as forgiving myself, I feel like if, like face to face with myself and being like, do I really apologize? Or like, do I really forgive myself or apologize for how I handled the situation? I feel like it depends on the day, because sometimes I'll think about it a different way and be like, man, do I forgive myself? Do I forgive him? Do I feel that he deserves to be forgiven? Do I feel that it was the right thing to kind of cover up the situation for him? So I don't really know. I feel like
that's an honest answer. That's an honest answer. And again, when we have these conversations, it's not about right or wrong. It's about being true to yourself, your experience. We're all trying to, get through this process together. So if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. I say own that, and it's okay, and it's okay. Because that's your truth, and no one can tell you your truth but you. Nobody can speak to that. With all of the therapy and with all of the professionals, what works for you. You know how you feel in the moment. You know how you're walking through this, how you're living in it. Nobody's living that but you. So I respect that. That's a truthful answer, a truthful response. And the same with you. It's like, I don't want to have nothing to do with him. Absolutely nothing, So and that's, for me, I think that's very, very honest and very, very telling, because a lot of times we always feel we have to go back and save, or go back and make amends. Sometimes the strongest decision you can make is, once you're free, be free, keep moving. You know what I mean? And still pray for them. Oh my God, pray that, they'll find their wholeness, they'll find their healing. But it doesn't mean you have to, go back physically to make that reconciliation. The reconciliation comes from your heart, your mind, your mental health, your state of being. You've made your peace with God about it. And you said something very key too, Michelle, forgiving yourself. Forgiving yourself is so critical, because we often will find and cast more blame on ourselves than the perpetrator, the individual, that the person that is abusing, the abuser. And because it's like, what could I have done differently? Or I shouldn't have, what did I say that triggered this person? We do all of those things, and instead of saying, no, let me deal with my own issues, but that person has some stuff that they have to deal with. and be fair about it. And proportionately, oftentimes we don't do that. So this has been an incredible night. I don't know, we still have some folks that are still with us. Did anyone have any I want to quickly give you time. If you want to ask a question of our guests, you can put it in the chat, and I'm going to put my readers on so that I can see them and read the questions. While we're giving people opportunity, if they want to ask you ladies any questions, do me a favor. You mentioned, or I mentioned in your bios, that you have a line that you're doing of healing products, Michelle, and of course you are, with your books and everything. We want to know how we can connect with you. So Michelle, you go first. You can tell us a little bit of how they can connect with you with your products that you are currently selling. I believe it's Etsy, right? You're on Etsy. You have a shop on Etsy. So you want to share that information for our guests? For our
I'm gonna put it in the chat because
awesome.
I feel like kind of a handful.
Good.
Mouthful
that
to
works.
say.
That works.
But yes, right now I make beads, and the way I view them as a whole is just it's more personal, because I feel like I don't adorn myself enough. I feel like I don't, put something simple on to be like, okay, I feel cute in this. I feel like I take myself too seriously a lot of times. So I kind of wanted to put that fun energy into what I make and just be like, this is cute. I like how it feels on me. I like how it looks, and I want to wear it. So like I said, I can put it in.
Yes, please put it in the chat. We'll put it in the chat. We'll share, and so that it can be shared with our audience. And that will be awesome. And what about you, Miss Pamela? I know that you are an author. You have 4 books. So if people want to reach out and be able to purchase any of your product or whatever else you would like to share with us, how will we get in contact with you?
Well, there are a couple ways you can reach out to me, and I'll put my website in the chat. I have a website, pammintz.com. You can reach me for the books. There's a t-shirt line, and also for my speaking engagements, that's there. You can find me on social media under Pam Mintz Williams on Facebook, and then on Pretty Girl 3018 on Instagram. So I'm on quite a few outlets, but there is a t-shirt line that says Save Single Sister Real Talk. That was very popular. My first book was very popular because it's very, very, very transparent. Because it's all about 4 friends who are saved, single, and they want a man.
All right. Amen. Don't we all? I'm saved and single too. Amen. So praise the Lord. I maybe need to purchase a copy of that book right about now. Well, that's great. If you can definitely put that information in the chat so that our audience has an opportunity, if they want to reach out to you after tonight, they have the information and they can do that. Again, we want to thank you all for joining us here at the Well Women's Chronicles. Just to remind you, we are here every 3rd Wednesday at 8 p.m. via Zoom. Still have some phenomenal shows lined up to bring us to the close of 2021. What a year this has been. Amen. And we are not done yet. So we look forward to our October show, which is dealing being a parent of a special needs child. We have a wonderful young woman coming on who has a son with autism. She's written her first book, and she's going to be sharing some things. She's a counselor, has a support group for parents with children with special needs. So we're very excited to have her. We're also going to be dealing with caretakers Oh my goodness, I'm looking forward to that particular show as well. And then we're going to close out the year with a bang and deal with goals, sisters, setting goals. Having your circle, that sphere of influence, the power, your power team and connections, and how to go into 2022 with less stress, de-stressing, doing decluttering, not so much maybe in the physical it's needed, but a lot of us need to declutter our spiritual space, ourselves. So we have a couple of great months worth of shows lined up. We hope that you will come back and see us again on Wednesday, the third Wednesday of the month, 8 p.m. We'll be right here with another great show. Thank you all again for joining us. I am Pastor Faith Smith, your host for the Well Women's Chronicles. This has been an exciting night. Thanks again, and please come back and see us. Take care, everybody. Thank you for joining. Thank you, ladies. I love you guys. Thank you so much.
Love you.
Thank you so much. What a great show.